Welcome back to another fabulous episode of the Jennuine Life Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Nicole, and as usual, I am thrilled to have you here with me. If you are new, welcome to the family, the bestie clique, and if you're an OG, welcome back home, skillet. I am so thrilled that you all have come back for another episode. And, last week I gave you some small assignments. So, I hope you found some time to connect with someone over the phone or FaceTime or use some time to journal and or reflect. And of course, for those of you who liked, commented, subscribed, and shared this podcast, thank you so much. Definitely brought a smile to my face. And I also wanted to take a moment to do a mental check-in with you. We're all in the middle of something no one was prepared for. And I've been seeing memes and comments and posts, and I want to make sure that you're stepping away when you need to from social media. And now more than ever, we have to make sure we're protecting our peace. And so whatever that looks like for you, friends, I really encourage you to do it. It's just so important not to allow social media to dictate what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. As long as we're staying within the guidelines of the CDC, of course. I just want you to take full control of your peace in these next coming weeks, because we got a little ways to go, some of us. So, my weekend was a mixture of productivity and being lazy for sure. Saturday was definitely my Netflix and chill day, and I stumbled across two series that had my absolute full attention, and I wanted to suggest them to you so you can add them to your list of things to watch if you have not seen them already. The first one is How to Fix a Drug Scandal. Okay, wow. It's super juicy, it's very scandalous, and it left me just in awe of the system and how things can be easily manipulated, and just wow. So I don't want to go into it in case you have not watched it, but it's definitely something you want to add to your list. It will not disappoint. It's such good TV. It's a really good doc. So add that to your list, How to Fix a Drug Scandal, and then also add Who Killed Malcolm X. That was super good as well. I, was like, oh, I know the movie. I've seen it. I'm good. And, an episode in, I had no idea all that went into his story, the assassination, just everything. And so it's just so good. It actually caused me to go down a rabbit hole and try to learn more about him. And so it's just really, really good. So you want to check out Who Killed Malcolm X. And as a little bonus, because I'm feeling, friendly today, I would tell you to check out the 4th season of Nailed It for some good fun TV. The host sometimes can be a bit much for me. She can be a little over the top sometimes, but it doesn't stop me from watching the show. It's really good. And especially when you see what these folks are out here baking. It's it's really funny. So anyway, moving right along. As you can tell by today's title, we're going to be talking about change. And, at this point, I feel almost overqualified to talk about this topic because a lot of my life changes came in the form of moving and job opportunities. But the tips I plan on sharing today can be applied to deciding whether or not you are looking to relocate. Maybe you're thinking about changing jobs, changing your eating habits, or something as simple as changing your hair. There's no right or wrong way to make changes, but being aware of timing and opportunity that's being presented is extremely important. I also want to point out that change doesn't always come with support. Sometimes the people we think are going to support us won't, but that shouldn't ever stop you from doing what is best for you. Okay. So as I begin to share my story with you, I'll be sharing the moments that I knew it was time for a change, and we can discuss as we go along. I have these tips written down, but of course, you know me, I might veer off to the left a little bit, but I have these tips and I want to share them with you, and we'll jump right into it. So anyway, as many of you are aware, I'm originally from the great state of New Jersey, born and raised. I had lived there for over 20 years, and you couldn't tell me that wasn't where I was going to remain for the rest of my days, okay? Life was smooth and golden for the most part. I had a great job. At the time, I was an assistant manager at Bath & Body Works. I had worked in retail a really long time, but right before my change occurred, I was at Bath & Body Works. And, eventually worked into like a customer service role. But at the time when I was in retail, I had a little Honda Civic Coupe with a little sunroof, and I was living at home because I had been evicted, but that's neither here nor there. Okay. Thought I was grown, moved out, couldn't pay the bills, and had to come on back home. So I was living there at home, kind of recouping from the eviction and learning what it was like to be an adult. And so I had no major bills, and my parents were super, super nice to, let their child back in the house. And it was then that I met someone, and after, the dating phase, we got married and we decided to move to Atlanta. And so that change was prompted because every time we visited, we never wanted to leave. And he was also starting his career as an entrepreneur. And I've always believed that as a person of color, Atlanta is just a really, really good place to plant roots for awesome opportunities and for growth and networking. And so as time progressed, the relationship went tumbling down a hill pretty violently. I mean, not to say like no one hit anybody. I mean, like it just went to hell in a handbasket pretty quickly. And we ended up getting a divorce. But this was right around the time I had been laid off from my job. I was working as a customer service representative remotely with a company, and they had been bought out. And so they didn't need my position anymore, and they laid me off. And so thankfully I had family, so I lived with them for a little while I was able to get back on my feet. But at one point I was working 3 jobs and commuting it was about an hour and 30 minutes one way every day to like the full-time paying job. And I absolutely hated the apartment that I was living in. It was... you know it. I mean, it was the only one that I could afford at the time. And so it was very, very plain Jane. Like it was not the place I would have chosen for myself. And it, you should see my face. Like I was starting to think about it. It was just not cool. I barely had furniture, and I'm not saying this for like a pity party, but I'm just trying to let you know where I was. Life wasn't great. I had went from living in like Brookhaven, which is like Buckhead, to South Georgia, and I was on my own, and I had just was so determined not to go back home, and I was gonna make it work, whatever it took. So I worked and I worked and I worked, and I also was suffering in a way. Even though I had family there, I felt really, really alone. I mean, if you've gone through a very, very large breakup or a divorce of some kind, you do understand that there's a lot of emotions that come along with that, regardless of the reason why it ended. And I never really had time to process any of that because I just kind of jumped into working. I needed to get out of my family's house, get my own place, and do this on my own kind of mentality. And so that's where I was. And I didn't like anything, I was working and I hated my apartment. I was broke. I just felt like I was always chasing a check. And to top it off, I would see my ex at the most random places. And, I was just over it. I was over Atlanta and I just needed a fresh start. I was starting to get into a really, really dark place. I mean, like there were days where I would just be in the bed, like on my days off, and I wouldn't get up, and that is no way to live. And it wasn't how I had ever experienced life before. And so I knew I needed a change. And so tip number 1, when you know it's time to make a change, or maybe you're feeling the itch or the tug, it's important to evaluate your surroundings. I had become a totally different person. Emotions I had never experienced before were bubbling up. I felt trapped in Atlanta at that time, and I just needed a fresh start. I needed fresh opportunities and a chance to step out and away from that environment and just rebuild my life, rebuild who I wanted to be and how I wanted my life to look. And so if you are leaving a job, leaving someone's presence, or living in a city where you feel absolutely drained, whether that's mentally, emotionally, physically drained, I challenge you to evaluate why you're still there. Right? I had to keep saying to myself, why am I doing this? Like, what is keeping me here? nothing, right? And I understand completely my situation could be very different from anyone else. Like, I don't have kids that I need to think about. I'm not in a relationship. And so, that decision comes a little bit easier for me, but I still think across the board, if you're being drained in any kind of way and you're not living up to your absolute best potential, best life, what is causing you to hold on? Is it worth your peace? And for me, staying in Atlanta at the time, it was not worth it at all. I had to go. So right when I was getting the itch to leave, I had an amazing opportunity to work at Google on a 2-year contract. And so, as you all know, I quickly jumped at the opportunity. I'll never forget it. I had accepted the offer on a Friday, and within 3 weeks, I was driving my little Fiat to Austin with whatever I could pack in that car and some suitcases. So, yeah, it was cool, and although I had family in Waco and family in Austin, I really had moved to a place where no one knew me. I had no friends there. I was literally starting from scratch. And I knew that, this was going to be really good for me because I was, again, somewhere where no one knew me. I had space to grow. And I had the opportunity to learn more about Jennifer and really sit in things that I wanted and figure out what I wanted out of my life, how I wanted it to look. And Austin allowed me the peace to be able to do that. So, all things come to an end. And I was faced with making another decision that would involve change. And so when I realized that I was not going to become a full-time employee at the Googs, my AKA for Google, I needed to decide whether or not I wanted to stay in Texas. I liked Austin, but I knew it wasn't my forever place. So then, the thoughts of maybe Houston or Dallas kind of came up. But, do I take this opportunity to move back to New Jersey? New Jersey always has had a place in my heart. Or try a totally different city altogether. And so Charlotte had also been at the top of my mind quite often. Whenever I visited, I just loved it, and it's growing so much. So Charlotte has always been top of mind, and I was open to moving there as well. But the great thing is I didn't have to wait long. Amazon slid in my DMs on LinkedIn, and before I knew it, I was accepting an offer to move to Seattle. So tip number 2, sometimes change brings unexpected adventures. I never would have thought I'd move to the West Coast ever. Okay. But I was open at that time. And so sometimes we have an entire plan in our minds about how things are going to go, where we're going to go. And then we find out that sometimes change brings opportunities we never thought of. And with that comes opinions from supporters and naysayers. I had shared with some folks that I was going to be moving to Seattle, and I heard great things and I heard horrible things. But because I had spent time thinking about my decision, someone's opinion wasn't going to sway me either way, right? And that's why I encourage you to always do your own research about everything. Because if you ask 50 different people their opinion on something, you're going to get 50 different responses, right? And so that can really aid in clouding your thoughts when making a decision to make a change, especially one as big as changing your job or changing a location. You're going to hear, oh my God, you've been at your job for 10 years. Just stay there. Okay. But if it's not fulfilling to you any longer, or if you're just feeling really bound, I encourage change. Right. So anyway, I never just, I don't know. I would say with that comes, like I said, it comes with opinions from supporters and naysayers, but one, you have to be comfortable with what works for you. In the long run, at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you, regardless of what everyone else is saying, because you don't want to think back and regret or think about the what ifs, right? 2, I want you to acknowledge fear, because fear is going to come with making a change, but never let it stop you. I was terrified to move here to Seattle. I was very scared, but I just didn't want to live with any regrets, and I didn't want to constantly think, oh gosh, what if I did take that position, or where would I be? I can say that I did it and I've experienced it. So having been in Seattle now for almost 1 year, which I still can't believe how quickly time is flying, I do find myself in another moment in my life where I have to make another major change. And so friends, drum roll, I can never roll my tongue, so don't judge me. I'm super excited to share that I will be relocating, and hopefully for the final time, friends, because your girl is tired, okay? I am ready to settle down somewhere and sit my little behind down and just build a life officially. So prayerfully, this is the final time, and I'm super blessed that I work for a company that is, one, supportive of my needs right now and are allowing me to keep my exact same position, just do it remotely. And I'll be doing it remotely from the great city of Atlanta. That's right, peeps. I'm heading back to the Peach State. And so I am super thrilled to share this news with you. But, quite a few things went into this decision for me. It was not easy at all to make this decision, but there were quite a few things that just kind of weighed on my heart that made the decision easier to make in the long run. And so while I think Seattle is beautiful, I've met some amazing folks here that I pray we continue to keep in touch and see each other. And when I get married, because we speak life on this podcast episode in this show, when I get married, they're like people that I would totally invite to my wedding. Like, they're not just some fly-by-night friends. They're people who, I really value their friendships with. There's no bugs out here in Seattle, so I'm going to miss that. And my allergies pretty much disappear when I'm out here. I just know that this move is the best thing for me right now. I came to Seattle with the plan of staying planted here for at least 2 to 3 years at minimum. But one, I really feel far from my family and a very strong support system. I am feeling a little lonely out here, just being very transparent with you. I feel very isolated, and I miss my folks. Like, I miss my family, my sister, my cousins. I miss being close to my parents. It's a 6-hour flight from here to New Jersey versus 2.5 hours from Georgia to New Jersey. So, all of that played a huge factor into this decision. Being in Atlanta is going to put me very close to them, and it's something that I have come to value now that I have been so far. That is super, super important to me, is being close to my family. Number 2, Seattle is expensive, honey. Okay. It is too rich for me, and I'm not trying to fool with these folks out here. I can't do it. And this is in no way saying that I am like uncomfortable, like I'm living, but I know I could be living much better. Especially somebody with no kids and no real responsibilities. I make pretty decent money, and I still feel like I'm just like, treading water. I want to float. I don't want to like I can't do it. I cannot do it. And I just have to realize that. I've recognized it. I acknowledge it. And I know that I can have an amazing quality of life and really stretch my hard-earned dollars in Atlanta. And not to mention get way more space for the same price I'm paying for a studio here in Seattle. And so that has been weighing on me as well. Like, every first of the month, it is just like, Jesus, give me my money. I mean, like, good God. So yeah, Seattle's just a little too rich for my blood. Out here. And number 3, I needed to be around an already established community versus building one. So I really want to explain this because at this point in my life, as I'm getting older, making friends is not getting easier. I value deep-rooted, tried and true, tested friendships and bonds that I have in Atlanta that I think are even more important now for me than they were when I was there. I want that effortless friendship thing back. And this is totally not to say that the people that I've met out here don't provide that for me. But there is a difference being around some folks that have known you for like years, like talking about grammar school days, family that you've grown up with. I just felt such a sense of peace when I was in Atlanta this last trip, where I just was around like people that I loved and trusted and knew that were truly there for me and had a really strong support system, which is so important to have. And if you have it, cherish it, and sometimes support systems come in different forms and shapes. They're not always a mom, dad, sister, brother, auntie, cousin. Sometimes it's like your boss at work, or that coworker that's super, super cool that you just get along with and you can depend on. But because I have that relationship with my family and friends in another state, I can go there, right? And so that's something that's super important to me. And when I was in Atlanta, I had a routine. I had like a thing, I would wake up on, this is real, this is true life. Every Saturday I would get up, go get my car washed if it wasn't raining, and go get my nails done. That was like every 2 weeks with the nail appointment, and then I would go to the farmer's market in Decatur, which I cannot wait to go to. The farmer's market, I would meal plan on Sundays. I had a workout buddy that I worked out with, 6 days a week. My sister was there, so we would hang out. My cousin's there, so we would hang out, visit my aunt on Sundays. We would have like dinner. Whenever my parents came down to visit, they never had to really worry about splitting time between which daughter are we going to go see. So it was easy for them to catch both of us at one time. More frequently, up until Atlanta, I hadn't seen my father in almost 2 years, and that's just too long, and so all of those things were playing a part in me making a decision. And, I just long to be in a diverse environment again. I've never felt strange or out of place here in Seattle, so I definitely want to make that clear. It's totally not what I'm saying, but I am aware that there aren't a lot of folks walking around that look like me. And I just don't want to get overly excited every time I see a Black person walking around, it shouldn't be that way. And I know Atlanta is going to satisfy that need for me to be in a more diverse area and allow me to just be and not be aware of that, that there's not a lot of folks walking around that look like me. So when I think long term, eventually, I want to build a house. I don't always want to rent. And right now, for now, I'm good for being a renter. But long term, I know that I would be able to build a home, build exactly what I'm looking for, and probably get it on a nice piece of land out in Atlanta versus out here in Seattle. I'm pretty sure what I want would easily translate to a $1.5 or $2 million house here in Seattle, which is crazy. So, a lot of these things obviously went into my thought process. And tip number 3 is change. Going a different route or changing your plans does not equate to failure. When I first started thinking about this move, because I wasn't staying as long as I had planned, immediately thoughts of I failed crept in. And I can't stress enough how far from the truth that is. I tried something and I realized that it wasn't for me, and that's totally okay. We have one life to live, and as I've always encouraged on this show, it's so important for you to live genuinely and live life on your own terms unapologetically, and that's period, okay? I don't care what it is. If that means you got to change something, change your location, change your circle, change the food that you're eating, do it. And I don't care what anybody has to say. If it's bringing your soul some peace and you're happy, do it. Okay. So this move is taking place in June, which is like tomorrow in my book. So while I'm no stranger to relocating, I'm totally unaware of moving during a pandemic. So far, so good. Everything is going as as according to plan. But, of course, your positive vibes and well wishes are totally welcome at this time. I am just so thrilled about this change. I truly believe this is such a good move for me. And what I'm really, really excited about is I'm returning to Atlanta a totally different person. I'm not the same Jennifer I was when I lived there before. And so my approach has been, I've never lived there before. And I'm approaching it as if this is my first time living there. And I'm going to experience Atlanta the way that I was supposed to experience it before, but just on a whole nother level, because I'm on a whole nother level, right? I've been elevated, and I am so excited for this opportunity for me. And I'm just so grateful that Amazon was supportive of my decision as well, because, that could have gone another way. And so I'm grateful that I'm able to keep my job. and become a remote employee. So your girl gonna hook her little office up, and it's gonna be cute and all like fuzzy stuff, and it's just gonna be real cute. I'm so excited. But you know what? I will keep you posted for sure along the way with this new adventure. I really, really hope that this helped you in some kind of way, and just know that, one, you're not alone. I've been through a lot of stuff, and I know change brings uncertainty, but I also know change is really good once you get past the uncertainty and the fear and just the thoughts of what ifs and what's going to happen, all of that. Once you get past it, it's beautiful. You get to experience things that you may or may not have experienced. So don't be afraid of change. Feel the fear, but work past it. And until next week, I hope you have an amazing, productive week, whatever that looks like for you. Because you know what? Binge watching a TV show is productive. I don't care. And I will see you next week, friends.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. Make sure you're following Jenn on Instagram at Jennuine Life, and that's JENNUINE Life, to stay connected throughout the week. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Jennuine Life podcast episodes. Until then, join us back here on Monday for a new episode. As always, beauties, remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and be genuine.